Okay, you are listening to Hall Monitor on WPPM 106.5 in Philadelphia, on Comcast Channel 66, and streaming live at phillycam.org. You can find us on Twitter at Hall Monitor WPPM, on our website www.hallmonitor.org, or on Facebook at PHMWPPM. Tonight on the program, we'll be joined by Rebecca Lopez Chris, Deputy Commissioner for Policy Outreach and Taxpayer Assistance Programs for the City of Philadelphia Department of Revenue. Our own Lance Haver will discuss the unemployment situation in Pennsylvania, and Denise Clay Murray will give us a preview of her weekly column that will be out in the Hall Monitor Weekly Dispatch this Friday. Lance, how are you this evening?
I'm all right, cold and wet like everyone else.
Yeah, it's that time of year, and that's what we're going to be dealing with now for the foreseeable future, it looks like.
Maybe some snow too.
Hey, you never know. You never know. What we're going to do tonight, one thing we want to make sure everybody knows about, and that's going to be one of the subjects of our first interview. Friday is the deadline to submit your property tax assessment appeal. Okay? So if you were going to do that, it's crucial that it happens. You should be doing it now to make sure you get it in for Friday. So we're going to play our interview with Rebecca Lopez Chris, where we talk about that a little bit. And then when we come out of it, I'm going to walk you through what the city recommends you do in order to make sure that gets in timely. So here's our interview with Rebecca Lopez Chris. All right, Rebecca Lopez Chris, thank you so much for being with us.
Good morning, Larry. How are you? Thank you for having us.
I'm doing very well, and we have a lot to talk about because we are in a position right now where we're getting close to the end of the year, and there are a lot of programs that people should know about in terms of plans that can save them money, all different kinds of things. So what I'd like to do, honestly, is start a little differently. I want you to tell me and our listeners some of these programs and where they can find this information.
Of course, absolutely. I think let's start with Homestead, the Homestead exemption. This is a really important program for anyone who lives and owns their home. And some people might not realize is that the city council and the mayor increased the amount or the value of homestead. So you could be saving now up to $1,119 on your real estate taxes. For some people, that could mean it could completely wipe out their tax bill. And so it is incredibly important that people sign up for this. We estimate that maybe 60 to 70,000 people who are eligible aren't taking advantage of it. And so shows like this and telling your neighbors and telling everyone in your family about this program is incredibly important. You can find more information at www.phila.gov/homestead. And that has, it's as simple as the way I laid it out. And there are a number of ways to apply. One of the easiest is to go online, and which is at the Philadelphia Tax Center, which is brand new, just launched. It's a pretty easy process. You kind of look up your property and then make an application from there. That website is mobile enabled, so you can totally do that on a tablet or on a phone. But if the internet is not for you, which is okay, you can call. You can do this totally over the phone. The phone number is 215-686-9200. There are operators standing by during business hours, and you can call, you can give them your address. They'll ask you a few questions to verify that you are who you are, and boom, the application will be submitted. That's very easy as well. And if you are a paper person and you want to fill it out by paper, you still can, but it must be postmarked by December 1st. The deadline for homestead exemption is December 1st every year. And it is, you can go online at phila.gov/homestead and download a paper application, and that's been translated into 8 languages.
Okay. And these are, Homestead in particular is one of these programs where it's just a couple of things that you fill out, and then
it's a handful of questions. And even if you have a tangled title, you are eligible for homestead. So you have to make an affirmation that you're an equitable owner. So a few extra questions, but generally speaking, the things that the city is looking for is what property is this? Who are you? Can you verify that this is your primary residence? Can you verify that, is there a percentage of this property that's being used for business? I mean, that's pretty common in Philly, where like the first floor is going to be, a retail space, and then the second and third floor might be residential. That's fine. Those are still, those properties are still eligible for homestead. You just have to let us know what the percentage is.
Now, are there any other programs that homeowners should know about?
Absolutely. Philadelphia has some of the most progressive protections for homeowners in the country. A very, very important program is called the Senior Citizen Tax Freeze. That is something that helps folks who are vulnerable seniors in our communities. If you have an income that qualifies you for the state's program for PACENet, so the income qualifications are set by the state's program PACENet, you can apply to have your real estate taxes frozen at the level that they are when you apply, and they will never go up. So that is really, really powerful and important. And for some seniors, if their bill is wiped out by the homestead, it will always be zero from then on. It is very, very powerful and very, very exciting. The income limitations are on our website. It's www.phila.gov/senior-freeze. But I've got that up here. And so just so everybody kind of knows, it's for a single person, the income is $33,500 or less. And for a married couple, it's $41,500 or less. And again, those are limits that are set by the state. And so if you're in PACENet, or you qualify for PACENet, which is a state medication program, you qualify for the senior freeze in Philadelphia, so long as you are at least 65 years or older, or your spouse is 65 years or older, or you are at least 50 and a widow of somebody who is 65 and older. So that gets a little complicated, but if you are a senior, please check it out. City Council also expanded that program. So very importantly, so previously it was just the year that you applied, right? We're going to freeze your taxes at the year that you applied. Well, now Senior Freeze is can be applied retroactively. So if you realize at any point after 2018 that you would have qualified, you can apply and get the program retroactively. So the idea is that, seniors are some of our hardest people to reach. They are not on the internet, and, they just, sometimes they're a little bit more isolated. So we definitely work hard to reach seniors. And so City Council and the mayor, when they passed that legislation, basically were saying, we understand that sometimes seniors could have been eligible and they missed the boat because they just didn't know. And we want to give folks an opportunity to enroll in the program, even if it's after the previous deadline.
And one of the other important programs for people is the Loop program.
Right. Loop is complicated. I'll be honest with you. I think Loop is hard for people to understand. We've tried to make it a little bit easier. We have updated the application to include kind of a little bit of a form that you can put in your assessment numbers and kind of do a little bit of math, and we help guide you through the math. So Loop is a program that if your assessment has increased by a certain amount, in this case, over 50% in a single year, or by 75% over 5 years, we will essentially cap your assessment by either 1.5 times or 1.75 times, depending on which of those you qualify for. And in some cases, that's a really good deal. That's great. And in other cases, now that the homestead is so much larger, it might make more sense to be in homestead because you can't have loop and homestead at the same time. So people are going to have to kind of do the math and think through whether or not it's a better idea for them to have loop right now or homestead right now. So that's a really important caveat. In the most recent legislation, some of those calculations were changed. And so it sort of makes it so that the taxpayer needs to sort of figure it out on their own. Or with a trusted neighbor or family member, because you are listening and you know, like, the deal.
And speaking of homeowners, one of the major issues we've seen over the last year or so is the rise in property tax assessments.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you have a little bit of information to tell us about that, because the application is due on December 2nd, which is Friday.
Right. So right. The application for a first level review with the Office of Property Assessment is December 2nd. So that's basically you saying, I don't agree with my assessment. I think there's a problem with it. I want the OPA to look at it. I mean, you kind of have to have some justification. You can't just decide you want to do it. Like, is your assessment very different from your neighbors? Did the letter or did any of the characteristics, are they incorrect? Like, does the OPA think that your house has 4 bedrooms and it only has 2? Is there a real reason or a specific thing that you can cite that would make sense that they should review it? I would ask, as just as like a homeowner myself, I would ask yourself, does my assessment match what I could sell my house for? And if you could sell your house for more than what your assessed value is, I think, like, you should just consider how you want to proceed there. But if the assessment is way out of line and there's no way you'd ever sell your house for that amount, you should definitely have it looked at.
I'd like to bring in Denise Klingmurray here on Philadelphia Hallmark.
Hi, Denise.
Hi, it's nice to see you again. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. It's been a while. It's been a while. I think I talked to you last year too. Last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it has been. You mentioned that people need to make a decision between whether or not they're going to get on the LOOP program or the homestead, or take the homestead extension, and that they should get someone to help them with the math on that. Is there anyone you would recommend for that? Is there anybody in the office that could help them with that? Because you have senior citizens that are probably living among other senior citizens, and they can't necessarily figure this out.
Well, I'm hopeful that the materials that we put out an updated flyer and an updated application that walks people through to make it more simple. They do need to know what their assessments were in the previous years. I would say that any of their community groups, any of their neighborhood action committees, any of the NACs, any of the community development corporations, any of the CDCs, all of those groups have been briefed about these programs, and they should also have some constituent services. I'd recommend people reach out to City Council, and City Council has constituent services folks to help walk people through it. But I am hopeful that we've provided a clear enough kind of path or guide to help people through if they're a little confused about it.
Now, are you getting more applications for these programs? And if so, has it been a lot more or just a little bit more?
We've definitely been getting a lot more. Unfortunately, I don't have an exact number right now, but applications are definitely up. And keep in mind that the only way you are qualified for LOOP is if your assessment changes. And this happens to be a year that there was a large, the citywide assessment occurred. So in previous years, not very many people, or if any, actually qualified for LOOP because there was no assessment. So this is a year that like lots and lots of folks may qualify. The other thing about LOOP that's important to know is you have to have lived in your home for at least 10 years And you need to meet certain income qualifications, and those we've listed on our website at phila.gov/loop, LOOP. And that's, I hate to say things like 120% of AMI, like, there's an income guidelines on our website, and I encourage people to check that out before they apply.
I'm kind of glad you didn't say that, because I've been covering this kind of stuff for decades, and I still don't know what you mean by that. So if I don't quite understand it, it's safe to assume that some senior citizen who, basically is living in the house that they got from working at the factory back in the 50s and 60s isn't going to understand it.
Oh, it's total government jargony speak. I don't think, no one should be saying those words, AMI, which actually stands for, what is it? Average median income. Average median income. And in this case, it's the average median income of the 5-county area around Philadelphia. And so that changes every year. It's a calculation. Nobody else should have to know what that is.
Okay. Now,
Every year we update all of our applications with the new income levels, so that it just is there. It's set by HUD, so that's super in the weeds, inside baseball stuff.
okay. Now, I guess, how do you all get the word out about these programs? I know by coming on shows like this, you get the word out, but how else do you get the word out about these programs so that people know about them and they can apply for them?
That's a great question. We have a team of folks who do in-person outreach events. And I tell every group I talk to, I say, anybody that you want, any block party, any rallies, any church groups, any neighborhood groups, any block captains, if you want us at an event, please reach out. The woman who manages that is amazing. Her name is Vicki Riley. You can email her at vicki.riley@phila.gov. And if we can attend, we will absolutely attend. And in a normal year before COVID, we attended over 350 events in 2019. And that's because, it's not just Vicki, but she has a whole team of people. There will be Saturdays that we're at 5 different events on that day. I think our record is 6. But I think, we will be there. We also try to do our very, very best at providing translated documents. I think we realize that a significant portion of Philadelphians don't speak English as a first language. So whenever we can, we at least will translate everything. All of the applications are at a minimum translated into Spanish and simplified Chinese or Mandarin. But Homestead is translated into 8 languages because it's such a big program, and we want to get as many people enrolled in that as possible. So we also try to do training with all of the, like I said, all those CDCs, all the NACs, all the neighborhood outreach people. We are almost trying to do train the trainer type work. And if there is someone watching who wants us to do that or brief them, we will do it. The other thing that we have a very strong social media presence. And, in previous years, we've done a Facebook Live series. We have done, we have a full-time person who manages all of our posts that I think are not necessarily about reaching the general public, but they're about reaching those neighborhood groups who are advocates for communities. So we try to do lots of different things to reach lots of different folks. And I think we understand that the digital divide is real in Philadelphia. And so we work really hard to find ways to reach folks. A few years ago, I want to say everything feels like a few years ago before the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, we did a pilot where we actually hired a firm to go door to door. And this was a measured project where we measured, we basically kind of picked four census tracts that had relatively high rates of delinquency, high rates of poverty, higher rates of home ownership. So we tried to kind of pick these key places and try to pick 4 other places that kind of matched them. And then we did an intervention, which is that we sent people door to door to drop off materials and answer questions if anyone happened to be home. And we had a great response rate from that project. What we learned, and this is interesting, what we learned is that if the program is very general and anyone can apply, like Homestead, there is a statistical difference in people who apply for that program. But when it was something that like required a heavier application process, like the senior freeze or loop, there was not a statistical difference in the number of people who applied.
Now, wow, and I had a question and it just went right out of my head.
I know, because I'm talking so much, that's why.
The Loop program and the Homestead program, are those lifetime, like as long as you live in your house programs? Can you transfer those to your heirs if you're, as part of your will, if you're giving them the house? Because you mentioned tangled title, and that kind of popped into my head because of that.
So Homestead will be on the property until the deed changes, and then you'll have to reapply. In fact, that's true for every program. Once deeds change, all the programs fall off. And that's, for a variety of reasons, that's kind of our policy for now. With Loop, you keep the program so long as you are eligible. So if you suddenly don't meet the income requirements, then you shouldn't be in that program. I mean, the reality is if you don't meet the income requirements, you should pay your taxes, right? Like, this is a program that's designed to help people who live in an area that has experienced rapidly increasing home values and protects them. And if you can afford to pay the taxes, you should pay them. Otherwise, we want to make sure that you're protected, but we want everyone to pay their fair share.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I'll take it back to Larry McGlynn, our co-host, and you're listening to Hall Monitor on WPPN.
Thank you, Denise. So, Rebecca, before we let you go, I want to make sure people know where they can find all the information regarding these programs.
Sure. So, phila.gov/revenue is our overarching page, but we've got these great vanity URLs. So, phila.gov/homestead, phila.gov/senior-freeze, and phila.gov/loop, LOOP.
And is there anything?
And by the way, you can get more information if you call the phone number 215-686-9200. They will answer your Loop questions and they will answer Homestead questions. They also can answer questions about first level reviews.
And is there any other information people should know about the actual application process?
I would say that Homestead is very easy and very fast. With the senior freeze, you'll need to be prepared with and some proof of identification, as well as any income statements that you might have, Social Security letter, tax statements, any previous pay stubs, anything that you might have. We'll want some of that, which if you do the application on a phone, you can just take a picture of it and upload it to the site on your phone, because the site works on your phone. And similar to Loop, it's going to ask for income verification and residency, like that you can show that you've lived in this place.
Rebecca Lopez-Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. I can't wait to talk to you again. Thank you.
All right, we would like to thank Rebecca Lopez-Chris for being with us. Before we move on, I just want to mention this. To file a first level review, which is the first step in the process to appealing your assessment, you were given a first level review form with your assessment that was mailed to your home. That's the document you need to fill out and get to the Office of Property Assessment. If you don't have that form, if it wasn't mailed to you for some reason, or if you misplaced it, you call 215-686-9200. That's 215-686-9200. If you haven't done this yet, you should do it tomorrow. if you intend to appeal your property tax assessment, because again, the deadline's Friday. So today is or tomorrow would kind of be the last day to like get all this worked out before you have to turn the paperwork in. In our newsletter on Friday, come out on Friday, we're going to have more information about the other programs to which you can apply, and links to where you can apply for those programs. So I'd like to bring in Denise Clay Murray.
Hi.
And Denise, you are actually in the WPPM studio tonight.
I am, yes.
And tell people why that is.
Okay. I am here because I just got finished seeing Helen Gim, former City Councilwoman Helen Gim's announcement that she is running for mayor of Philadelphia. Yesterday, Councilwoman Gim resigned. Now, here's the thing that's odd about that. The last time she was on the council floor, which was last Thursday, she all but resigned then. And then she decided that she was going to resign yesterday. And before that, she was in council chambers for the swearing in of the 4 new council members that were replacing the first group of council people that resigned to run for mayor. So they took a group shot of all of the council people, and I don't know what the folks at City Council are going to do with that picture, but hopefully they've got Photoshop so they can crop out former council member Gim so it doesn't make the picture look weird or dated or whatever.
Well, we're going to see, and this has already become very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things happened today I think are interesting that we're going to talk about a little later in the show. So before we get to that, Lance, you've been looking at the unemployment situation in Pennsylvania, and this is something we've been talking about for a while now.
Right. There was a white paper given to the transition team for Governor-elect Shapiro that outlined how bad it's been. And I have a video from the press conference announcing the white paper. But there were some facts I want to mention before I show that, and that is the state, the labor and industry, which runs the unemployment compensation program, is violating the federal law. Pennsylvania is 49th out of 50 states in getting benefits to people on time. 50% of the applicants in Pennsylvania have to wait more than 2 months to get their benefits. Even though the federal guideline says 87% of all applicants should be processed in 2 weeks. So I have had a little bit of technical difficulties, but I'm going to do my best now to show you the press conference. And I'm going to go ahead now. I think I'm sharing my screen. And let's see. It says share. There we go. I'm sorry, it's not letting me do it. So let me try one more thing.
Well, as I always say, to err is human, but to really mess things up, you need technology.
Right. There we go. Okay. Let me see if I can get it one more time. And I'm going to open it. And it should be ready to go. I'm stalling for time while it does whatever it does. Oh, look at that. I have a lot of things on my screen. Here we are. And I'm hoping this does it.
I'm John Dodds from the Philadelphia Unemployment Project, and we have spent the last 2.5 years battling with the unemployment compensation system for working people that could not get their benefits. And it's been absolute disaster for laid off workers ever since back in the beginning of the pandemic. Thousands of claimants have waited for months to get their eligibility determined and get their money. Large percentage of people cannot even open a claim because of the difficulty of using the computer system. Somehow they think that computers will solve all our problems. Well, they have created a massive amount of problems. Jermaine Heath, who's trying to get his benefits, has been waiting a long time. He's like one of the unfortunate.
So today I want to just kind of speak briefly about the system and how it's broken and how it has affected me. I am, I just recently was laid off in September, and I filed my unemployment. I was laid off at the end of September, filed my unemployment at the beginning of October. I never received a response from the unemployment center about my claim that I filed. I went online and I discovered that they stated that I needed to file an appeal for my case. I didn't understand why I needed to file an appeal for my case because my employer said that they made contact with unemployment, advised them of my termination and that I should be okay. When I finally went to my appeal court hearing, the person told me that I should not be standing before them because I was already eligible to receive unemployment, and that I need to go back to the unemployment center and find out why they have not yet classified me for my termination date from my employer. I called unemployment and unemployment could not get through. I finally had the email. I emailed someone a week later. I got a response and they told me that I would just have to wait till somebody got to my case. They were backlogged. And that and that I could do nothing. I told them that I have the termination letter from my job. If I could send that in to expedite the process, could I do that? They told me no. I just need to just wait for somebody to get back to me. Here it is, the beginning of December, and I have filed a claim at the beginning of October, and I still have not received unemployment benefits yet.
And the reason it's such a devastating problem is that there's nobody to help you. There is nobody all over the last 2.5 years consistently. Nobody has been available to answer the phone. And this is people's livelihoods. They're not getting money and nobody explains to them what's going on.
As you've heard, there's still too many problems in the system that are keeping eligible people, listen to that again, keeping eligible people from getting benefits. We're not talking about people who aren't eligible. And you could write a book about all the problems that the system has, but let's really focus on the two biggest ones, because I tell you, we are one recession away from a disaster. If this stuff is not fixed by the next recession, we're going to look at thousands upon thousands of desperate people who are not going to have any way to get their benefits. The first is you got to be able to file a claim. Pretty basic, right? In the past, you'd get a piece of paper, you'd fill in the information, and there you go, you got a claim. Or after they got rid of local offices so that you could file a paper application, you call them up on the phone and they took an application from you, you filed your claim. Now you're supposed to file on the computer because God forbid you should get a live person on the phone. Well, there are two main problems, and the punchline here is too many people cannot even get applications filed. Again, eligible people who are not getting benefits because the system don't work. They cannot file applications. Two big reasons. The first is they're not good with computers. Raise your hand if you know somebody who's not good with computers. It's pretty much everybody, right? And maybe they, in many cases, don't even have a laptop, of course. They're using their phone. They're trying to get the stuff in on their phone. And then if they have a disability or they don't read well, they're really in deep trouble. The second problem with filing applications is that there's this thing called ID Me that requires you to do digital verification of who you are. I know people with law degrees who've not been able to successfully use ID Me. Imagine those people who are not good with computers. All right, second problem, as you've heard, is people are just not being paid on time. And that's not just bad policy, that's a violation of federal law. The Social Security Act says you're supposed to be paid unemployment benefits when they're due to you. 8 months later is not when they're due to you. So again, we are within the beginning of a recession, from this turning from very bad to an absolute tragedy, labor and industry has got to fix this and as soon as possible.
So even if the numbers go down, the state has not found a way to make the program work and to make people get their benefits. And we've, the hardships that we've heard about, the just terrible stories that we've heard over the years needs to be addressed. And that's why we're here today.
Unemployment insurance is vital to Pennsylvania's workers and economy. It keeps food on the table and a roof over families' heads when workers lose their jobs through no fault of their own. We have a dynamic, ever-changing economy that creates enormous uncertainty for people in all walks of life. Whether you have a high school education or a graduate degree, you can lose your job at any time, not just because of periodic recessions, because of changes in what consumers and governments want to buy and how goods and services are produced. That uncertainty would be unlivable if people did not have some expectation that they could get help in times of difficulty. Unemployment insurance also sustains the buying power of people in hard times, so our economy doesn't spiral down. The first is that the unemployment insurance benefits delivery system fails too many workers and has been doing that before, during, and after the COVID-19 pandemic. It still fails them. It is too difficult to apply for benefits, and the state provides very little help in applying. It takes too long to receive benefits. Too many people are wrongly denied. Too many are wrongly accused of fraud and then threatened if they don't repay benefits. And second, the benefit access nightmare of the past 3 years are layered on top of an unemployment insurance safety net with huge holes. Unemployment insurance benefits reach too few people and are too low to help people sustain their lives and that of their family members. Now, let me give you some data about each of those points. On the first one, last month, that is after most of the pandemic is over, with claims back to pre-pandemic levels, Pennsylvania made only 32%, paid only 32% of unemployment insurance benefit claimants within 15 days of them making that claim. That ranks 49th out of 50th in the number of people who can get benefits quickly. It made payments to only 56% of people who have legitimate claims within 70 days, and that ranks nearly 48th of all 50 states. Nearly half of unemployed workers wait more than 10 weeks before receiving their first payment. And as John pointed out, that's simply not sustainable for most people. Pennsylvania ranked 44th for the average age of first appeals. That is 244 days, about twice the U.S. average of 127 days. That is, if you're denied and you appeal, you can wait 244 days to even be heard. Now,
we've got with us a member of the legislature whose office has been flooded for the last 2.5 years with people in the same situation, and he's been a big help in fighting to make a better unemployment compensation system. And we'd like to bring up Representative Joseph Hohenstein. Joe?
Thank you, John. Hey, you guys are doing the work that we need to have done in the state of Pennsylvania. Who benefits? And a lot of people say, oh, it's those folks just sitting out on unemployment. I call BS on that. The people who benefit when we help our workers are all of us. So think of it this way. Wait times, and one of the wait times that Mark just referred to should really be shocking if you think about it in terms of the month-to-month, bill by bill that families have to go through. He gave us a time of 240 days to resolve an appeal. 240 days is 8 months. That's 8 months of rent. That's 8 months of childcare. That's 8 months of utility bills piling up. And what do we tell people? Calm down. Wait, right? Well, my parents told me to wait on Christmas morning for something, and that's something. That's your waiting is sometimes a great thing. Waiting for 8 months when you've got a landlord who needs a rent check, when you have utility companies that say, we might be shutting off your water, your electricity, you have kids who can't wait because they need to be fed. They need the clothes on their back. We can't be telling people to wait any longer. There was one really basic policy recommendation that was being made even before this white paper came out that just makes sense. And that is, if an employer doesn't respond in 2 weeks, the law says the person gets paid. Currently, L&I is not abiding by that. They are not paying people when employers fail to respond to the unemployment claim. They are making people wait. And they are also making people make up case or have to do a case for allegations of fraud that are completely unsubstantiated. And so those two things combined were already identified as a problem even before we had all of the research, all of the numbers, and everything that we need to present to Josh Shapiro and his team as they come in. So there are things we can do right here, right now, and I'm glad that all of you guys are out here. There are things that we in the legislature can and will be pushing to do in order to make sure that everybody can feed their kids and put a roof over their head.
Finances. I just want the city of Philadelphia and even the government to know that today we are standing in the gap, not just for ourselves, but for the gap for other people who may not be as fortunate as us to be able to go a couple of weeks out without getting unemployment or getting benefits. I think it is a disaster, and the system needs to be fixed and be fixed quickly. And I'm ready to stand in the gap for anybody who is suffering just like me, and even worse, who needs money to feed their family.
People, even now with unemployment at 4%, that are waiting and waiting for no good reason whatsoever, other than they have a system that does not work. And these are benefits that people worked, they paid into the system, it's insurance, and they should get those benefits, and they should get them within, it's supposed to be 87% of the people apply are supposed to get their benefits within 2 weeks. We got about 20% getting them in 2 weeks, and many are waiting for months. So we're a small nonprofit organization. People try to get help from the unemployment office. They never pick up the phone. If you Google Philadelphia unemployment, you're going to find our number. So since February of this year, we've had 2,570 people call our hotline for help. 2,500 people. And this is just one small nonprofit in one corner of the state. Point is, people are desperate for help. They're not getting it from the state. I just want to just talk about what we see out of those 2,500 people. 27% of them, the biggest number, are just waiting, just like our brother that just spoke, just waiting to be determined. It's 27% of the people that are waiting are just waiting. There's another 19% of the people that can't even file a claim. They can't file a claim. This orange, that's people that can't make the computer work. The whole thing's not working. And then we got another 8% of people in this green line, which is the third largest category. They can't log in. These systems do not work for so many people, and this is their only source of income. So I just want to point out that we are being flooded. We're still being flooded with people calling us, and these are basic problems. And we think that the biggest problem is they don't have anybody to help. So if you're waiting to be determined, get more people to make determinations. If you can't file, have a number you can call and they tell you how to file, what went wrong, and they'll help you fix it. And if you can't log in, the same. Call. The fact is, nobody answers the phone at the unemployment service.
The KRC white paper outlines 10 principles for reforming Pennsylvania's unemployment insurance system, grouped into 3 categories. First, the system must provide quality, timely, transparent, and humane service to unemployed workers. Second, it must build a strong financial and technological foundation for unemployment insurance. The state must rebuild its capacity for information technology so the state can bargain with providers, and the state must also involve unemployment insurance recipients and advocates in the design of computerized systems so that people can more easily access them without the delays they've had recently. And finally, the state must improve benefits and reemployment supports. It must raise the benefits, it must expand the benefits to more people, including gig workers and low-income workers, and must provide help for unemployed workers to find new jobs. That would not only benefit them, it would benefit businesses, it would benefit the Pennsylvania economy. The paper ends with detailed recommendations for honoring these principles, and we're standing here today having delivered this paper to Governor-elect Shapiro's transition team, urging him to acknowledge publicly the failures of the state unemployment insurance system and commit to these principles to restore basic confidence in our unemployment insurance system and modernize it so that more people get the benefits they deserve promptly and get more effective assistance in landing a good new job. Thank you.
Make a system that works for everyone. Make a system that is easy to read. Make a system that caters to the people that work for our city and our state day in and day out for generations. So please, please, if you hear this, if you're seeing us, whatever it is, come out and support and petition and call your representatives. Tell them what's going on. Tell them how urgent it is, because that is the power we have to apply that pressure to all of our local and state representatives. So please, please, please do just that, because I promise if one does it, if 10 does it, it works. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, you're muted there, Lance.
I think we're back now.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, we're back.
I think it really speaks for itself. I found it enraging to have to sit there and listen to that, to know that we're 49th in the nation out of all the states, below Mississippi, below Alabama, below all those southern states we like to make fun of, in getting benefits to people. And for those people who don't know, who don't really look at their paychecks, unemployment compensation is insurance. It's something that you pay the premium for, then your employer pays the premium for. And when you're laid off, not when you quit, but when you're laid off through no fault of your own, you get to collect on that insurance policy that you've been paying for all those years, with the exception of Pennsylvania, where instead of following the federal guidelines, which say 87% of the people have to get their checks, their compensation, their premiums paid within 2 weeks, we have 20%. And there are people who are applying who can't get through, people who can't use the computer. One of the things we wrote about in our email blast was the computer system, which was outsourced, is so backwards that it doesn't allow you to make a change. And because so many people use their phones to file, to get online, we know that there are typos. And anyone who designs a system where you can't correct a typo is a person who has never worked with people who are struggling.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. And one of the key things that we're definitely going to keep an eye on is what the incoming administration does about this. And it needs to be dealt with right away when Governor Shapiro was sworn in.
I have to say, if this were a Republican governor sitting in Harrisburg, I believe that there would be general outrage by the Philadelphia delegation.
Yeah, there would be torches and pitchforks out for sure.
But because it's a Democratic governor, Governor Wolf, who allowed this to happen, there's really been no outrage, with the exception of Representative Hohenstein and State Senator Street and State Senator from other parts of the state. There's really been very little outrage from the Philadelphia delegation. And
well, let me ask, Lance, how did this computer system end up being the computer system that was in use? Was there a bidding process? Is this a system that the Commonwealth hasn't had long, because I've collected unemployment in Pennsylvania before, and I don't remember this being the problem.
So when Governor Corbett was in office, he cut the unemployment staff. So it's labor and industry runs the program. He cut staff, he closed the offices, and he shut down the number of people answering the phone. So before the COVID, before the pandemic, the system was in disarray. When the pandemic hit, Governor Wolf, instead of doing what the governor in Oregon did or the governor in Washington did, calling up the National Guard to answer the phones to help people get unemployment compensation, Governor Wolf did something that's hard to understand. He laid off more staff. So you went from 3,000 to 30,000 people a week applying, and Governor Wolf laid off more staff. Now, part of that was people couldn't go into their offices, and there wasn't a way to really set them up in their homes to deal with all of the applications. So faced with this mess, what he did is went out and hired a company that had no experience doing this type of processing. And as a result, not a surprise, a company that didn't know what they were doing, that had no experience doing this, created a system that works very well for people who have laptops and are technically savvy and know how to use the computer for everything, but doesn't work for the majority of regular people. And that's how we end up here. So I understand that we had a problem. What I don't understand is that we haven't worked towards a solution. And still to this day, people are waiting much longer than what they should. And I recognize that there are people from the Pennsylvania delegation who did not want to talk about this issue before the governor's race because they were so partisan. But now, where is the Philadelphia delegation? Why aren't they going to see Governor-elect Shapiro's transition team and saying there are thousands of Philadelphians who are out of work and not able to get the benefits? Like that gentleman who spoke, he's standing in the gap.
There's a term for this in the military, but because it involves a word that you're not allowed to say on Philly Cam because the FCC will come and get you, I can't use it. But, it starts with cluster, and it does kind of need to be addressed because while right now we're technically not in a recession, that doesn't mean that we're not headed for one.
Right. And the Federal Reserve hopes for a recession, right? That's what they say. The only way to stop inflation is to lay people off. So they're busy drafting people into unemployment while the state of Pennsylvania is looking the other way at the unemployment compensation program failing. So that's my report. We will keep our eyes on it. We hope that people who are outraged by it will pick up the phone and call. But I do know we had some exciting news for the mayor's race, and I want to hear about it.
Yes. We are now up to 7 people who are running for the Democratic nomination for mayor of the city of Philadelphia. Helen Gim, former city council person, just threw her hat into the ring officially today. She joins 4 of her council colleagues, Alan Dom, Maria Quinones Sanchez, Sherelle Parker, and Derek Green in that pursuit, in addition to Controller Rebecca Reinhardt and Grocer Jeff Brown, and former Judge James DeLeon, who have thrown their hat into the ring to be mayor in 2023. Now, what I'm already seeing, and thank you, Larry, for sending this press release to me and bringing it to my attention. There's already going to be a few sharp elbows being thrown in this race because Derek Green, once, I guess, a little bit before Gim announced her candidacy, basically sent out a release saying, I had a plan. She didn't, support it. It would have gave more money to police. It would have cut taxes, and she wants to impose socialist taxes on you. And that was the phrase that stood out to me. Because
Me too.
Because here's the thing. And I feel like I have to do this every election cycle, and it's driving me crazy when all you have to do is go to a dictionary and pick it up and read what the definition of socialism is. Something I should not have to do when the person I'm addressing is a lawyer, but that it is what it is. Socialism, there are no socialist institutions in the United States. There are never going to be any socialist institutions in a place whose highest court has said that corporations are people. So, for there to be true socialism, it would have to be the group owns the means of production. And I don't know what socialist taxes are, but I'm pretty sure they don't exist. But if that's it's looking like national politics have come to the Philadelphia mayor's race, and it's just in time for us to have to take a deep dive and take a deep look into all of this as co-host here on Hall Monitor, because we focus on city council and city hall and the mayor's office. Just in time for us to have to do that, we're going to be basically having to duck from all the mud being thrown.
It was a strange thing to say based on how well Fetterman did, and how well Bernie Sanders did. So I'm not quite sure I understand the logic, and I agree with you. It would be far better for our candidates to talk about issues. How do we address poverty? What do we do about jobs? How do we have a budget that serves people? Than to sling words that don't have any meaning. And I'm old enough to remember this is just another form of red baiting. It's unfortunate because the Councilman Green is a great thinker. He has a lot of wonderful ideas. I'm sorry to see him using his mouthpiece to red bait.
And I'll take it a step further. Socialism in sort of the right-wing world is become code for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, anything that helps people, basically.
Right. And that is as close to socialism. That's as close to socialism as we get as a country.
Right. And when I see something like that, I think, well, what is he? How is he running his campaign? What is he going to run as? If you're using these terms, the wrong way, but we kind of get your gist. What do you want to do in this city? What do you want to see happen nationally? I was troubled by it. I really was.
Well, here's the thing. And this is another thing that Helen Gim, being, one of the people who's thrown her hat into the ring, and Rebecca Reinhart and a couple of the other folks who may or may not run for city council at large and city council councilmanic district races, we're going to find out whether or not progressive is considered a compliment or an insult in this election. We're going to find out what kind of power Philadelphia's progressives have. And I say this because when you say socialist taxes, and that's the comment that comes out, that is usually something that is directed at progressives. And it's going to be interesting to see how that's received, or if it's received, and what happens with that. All I know is that we are now up to, I think, 7 or 8 people running for the Democratic nomination for mayor. We will eventually have all of them on Hall Monitor to talk about their plans and their programs and what they want to do, and to give us very specifics on how they intend to do what they say they want to do. And, maybe, just maybe, we'll get them to understand that America is not necessarily amenable to socialism, and maybe we shouldn't say stuff like socialist taxes. I'm just saying.
And thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. Please read our newsletter. Good night.